I know where we are. One of the things to note is that we want to encourage as much dialogue as possible, and the questions and answers section in the webinar chat is what we're going to be using. And you know, Sally, you raised a really interesting point, and I can't remember the exact words, but it was something along the lines of digital fatigue. I think it was that. Was that what you said, Sally? In the question and answers, I think anyway, let's assume that it was. Yes, thank you. Yes, so about digital fatigue and about people on webinars and how people getting bored of webinars and how do we break that silence and webinar attendance numbers. Yes, absolutely right. So here's the thing, right? They're bored of shit webinars, pardon my French, but that's the point. And the thing that we're trying to break here is the fact that if you watched Netflix and you watched 10 TV shows, and then you said, oh, do you know what, I'm bored of watching Netflix. We just wouldn't do it. Netflix wouldn't have a business model. The reality of it is you just don't watch, your standards go up and up and up and up and up. So the point is, what we're trying to do here is trying to deliver a topic in line with marketeers, and we're trying to make it fun. Well, maybe not fun. Who can make this fun? But we're going to definitely try and make it engaging so that you can take something away from it. So I do get that question. I think it's a really good question. And you know what, if you don't think that we're doing a good job of trying to make it fun and engaging, please tell us and we'll try and improve it. But I think generally the feedback that we've had so far is that our style is it is quite light-hearted, and we're making it sort of fairly enjoyable, but it's quite a boring and dry subject at times when we talk about COVID and data and stuff like that. So try our best to make it exciting. So thank you for that question, Sally. I do appreciate that. Let's get on with some introductions. So I'll go first. I'm Adam Oldfield, the Managing Director of Force24. We're a marketing automation platform based in Leeds. We provide businesses just like you a logical progression from the likes of MailChimp or Campaign Monitor, and sit nicely alongside some of the bigger businesses that you will have heard of, such as HubSpot or Marketo or even sort of Pardot, whatever it may be. So we provide a UK-based alternative to those products with easier, it's faster, with free training and support for life on a 2-minute SLA, because we're on your time zone. So you know what? You've got to understand that we're doing this because we sell stuff. Philip's doing it because he sells stuff. Mike technically buys stuff and I guess sells stuff as well. But the point is, we've all got an agenda, and our agenda is to push ourselves, and we're all open and honest about that, right? We're not hiding anything. But we try and dispense the advice with a little bit of a flavor of this is how you can use the products and this is how you can improve. But also just generally, we are just 3 blokes that are chatting, that are trying to give some insight back from what we've seen. So anyway, that was a long introduction to me. Mike, would you like to go? Would you like to introduce yourself and YFM?
Yeah, morning everybody. My name is Mike Clarke. I'm an investment director at YFM Equity Partners. YFM is about 300 million investment fund that looks to invest in SME businesses. So we're investing sort of 2 million to 10 million in growing businesses. We're looking at investment opportunities, real businesses all the time, who are looking for investment to spend on people, machinery, new offices, acquisitions, anything like that. So I guess Adam's invited me on today just to talk to you about, you know, what are we seeing in terms of businesses that are looking for investment, how are those performing? We've got about 50 businesses in our portfolio that are across every sector, from restaurants and sort of coffee shops through to manufacturing and tech businesses, which are all having totally different experiences with coronavirus.
Thank you, Mike. I told you it'd be good. Thank you, Mike. Good intro. Philip, the man that needs no introduction.
Oh, that's very generous of you. I don't think so. So my name's Philip Allott, Managing Director of Allott and Associates. If anybody's attended any of these webinars in the past, you may well recall that I'm the Data Protection Officer for Force24, but I also have a separate business as well, which is Allott and Associates Limited. It's a public relations and marketing agency working internationally. And within there, we also have a data protection division. And if you find that not very interesting, I've also written a book. It's called Integrated Business to Business Marketing, and it will be available from John Hunt Publishing during the summer of 2021.
I'm sure we'll be sending lots of emails and communications to people to remind them to go and get that book. So thank you, Philip. I can't wait to read it because I believe we're heavily referenced in there. So it's going to be an amazing book, obviously. So thank you for that. I'm looking forward to reading it, though, generally, Philip. So very, very much value your opinion, and thanks for coming onto the webinar. So, okay, let's get on to it. So what we're interested in discussing today is in a roundabout way is really what is it that marketeers, what is it that we are going to be doing differently? How's COVID impacting? What's the future looking like in the next 6 to 12 months? What are we seeing for Christmas? What's generally the trend, and how's COVID impacting that? We're going to stay away from the boring, dry subjects of data. You know, we usually get the same questions in here about, you know, obviously the US Privacy Shield webinars that we've been having in the last few weeks and months. And yeah, of course, you've got a question, ask it about anything. It doesn't really matter. But we're going to try and keep focused onto this sort of economic recovery strategies and what it is that we as marketeers are doing differently. So the first thing I wanted to do was sort of introduce a little bit of consumer segment observations. And I want you to take this with a pinch of salt, because whilst we've got some interesting facts to support these, this is very much at the moment flavors and opinions. So at this stage, I don't know whether any, you know, Mike and Philip have got any actual facts to share on this, but what we're seeing in terms of how the marketplace is starting, people's attitudes towards the up and coming holiday season. What's Christmas going to be like? Well, obviously we don't know, but one thing we can say for absolute certainty is that the consumer segment is that we are very much focused on having a great Christmas. We're focused on doing what we can do to make the most of it. And the interesting thing, and that leads us to that conclusion, is the fact that on the not on the high street, who are actually quite useful because they publish quite a lot of their search data and sort of provide a lot of insight, along with eBay as well. One of the things that they announced was the fact that Halloween searches were showing a 900% increase in August. Right, and they say that is normally reserved for October only. So what's happened is everything's come out. So I absolutely do expect your Christmas tree to be up in the middle of November. I am not going to be surprised. The reality of it is I've seen my friends on Facebook, and I think you'll probably agree with me, Mike, Philip, I don't know if you've seen this now, but last week I've seen people carving pumpkins on Facebook. Like, normally that's the thing you do when you've nipped down the petrol station, you brought the pumpkins back for the kids on Halloween. But it's being done like a week and a half earlier, and this is people we know. Have you guys seen this yet? Have you watched this unfold in front of your very eyes, Mike?
So there is a big move towards people actually doing things very early, primarily because families, in many cases, are in semi-lockdown. So the normal leisure activities they go do, they can't do. So they're finding some reassurance from doing things like starting Christmas shopping. And the stores have been doing it for years. You know, Tesco's get the Easter eggs in for Christmas, and the barbecue stuff in the middle of January, February. So it's happening. But what's happening is consumers, the marketplace is getting slightly distorted. So people are panicking. So they're doing things early because they want to make sure they can do it, because it might be taken away from them next week or next month.
I mean, Mike, have you seen anything here?
Yeah, I think there's a familiarity and a bit of a security aspect of it as well, isn't there? That actually these are things that we all do every year, and it's a great distraction from what's going on at the moment. So if I can go and do my Christmas shopping, that's something that I'm in control of.
It anchors you back to norm, doesn't it? It pulls you back to what you know. Yeah, you're in control of that. You're doing this. Yeah, okay. And Jeremy, you did yours 2.5 weeks ago. Oh my God, it's in the bin now. Good for you. Oh, was that the pumpkin? I assume that's the pumpkin you did 2.5 weeks ago. Okay, fair enough, Jeremy. Well done. Okay, but generally speaking, we're seeing the same sentiment. The interesting fact was that bonfire night wasn't. So the big ones obviously have been Halloween and Christmas. bonfire night actually has seen very, very little prep. So years ago, it was in our family anyway. It was bonfire night was the bigger one of the two, Halloween and bonfire night. That was you had the bonfire, you had the fireworks, and off you go. But bonfire night, and largely the sentiment is that the Americans don't do bonfire night. So it's not a holiday that we share. Therefore, the big brands that essentially run our lives don't recognize it so much. Therefore, it kind of falls away. And that's an interesting thing about influence, isn't it? And sometimes we don't recognize when we are influenced, but we are all being constantly influenced. And you know what? I actually prefer bonfire night. I don't know whether anybody else agrees or disagrees, but I prefer it. I like it. It's fun. You get out and have some toffee and watch the fireworks and have great fun with the kids. But actually, it's been overshadowed by the fact that the Americans don't do it. Also, fun fact, bonfire night, we think, was the celebration of, I think he was called Guido Fawkes, wasn't he? But Guy Fawkes, who, by the way, his parents' farm is about 100 meters away from where I'm standing right now, and his family still own it. The Fawkes family, Newton Fawkes family still owns that farm. Amazing. But anyway, the fun thing was, it's not actually called bonfire night. It's called the Gunpowder Treason Day. It was never called bonfire night. But what happened was, at some point, a Celt tradition called bonfire night. I Googled all this, you can tell this isn't just off the cuff. Bonfire night, but I thought, bloody hell, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Bonfire night, where they used to burn animal bones to ward off evil spirits. It all got confused, and we now call it bonfire night. But it's not. It's we burn animal bones in order to ward off evil spirits and then somehow celebrate a terrorist. But we're actually celebrating the fact he was stopped, not the fact that he tried to do the thing. And the effigy of Guy Fawkes is obviously... Anyway, we know where we are with that. You don't need to hear that from me. The other interesting observation was about actually eBay's stats. So eBay announced earlier on, I think it was in October, so earlier on this month, they announced some stats around Christmas. And I know what we're talking about now is very consumer orientated. And I don't want people to turn off to that, because it isn't. What the consumer trends do is they feed everything else. So B2B can usually learn what's happening in the world based on what consumer trends are happening. So eBay announced earlier on this month that its Christmas searches and Christmas category searches, wrapping paper, Christmas wrapping paper, Christmas presents, that kind of thing, was 44% up in April and May this year. So, you know, this is what you were saying, Mike, it anchors me back to a happy place. I know the world is falling down around me, but one of the things I can look forward to is Christmas with the family, and I'm going to make sure I start prepping for that right now. And they've then said that from their 32 million UK users, they're now seeing circa 180 to 190% increase in pre-season volume, which means that the season really for Christmas hasn't started yet. You'll notice that John Lewis and all the physical bricks and mortar retailers have gone Christmas, but internet retailers don't usually follow suit until the end of November. That's obviously because we've got a lot more, we're a lot more agile as digital vendors. We can swap overnight and we can have a totally different looking shop. Whereas obviously in their world, they've got logistics and things. So they've been pushing the Christmas spirit for a while. But what eBay are saying is that actually, the online world should be reacting now to Christmas. And a really, really sad confession, guys, my Christmas tree is up. How? I'm not kidding you here. My actual Christmas tree is up in my living room. Not in the shed yet. It's coming. And you might say, why on earth is your Christmas tree up? That's just ridiculous. Well, as it happens, my wife works for a place in Leeds called Stockeld Park, and they're a massive Christmas tree retailer. So we've had a Christmas tree because we've been filming a video in the house. But when that filming was done, we had the choice to take it down. And yet, 3 weeks later, I've not yet taken it down. And it's because the kids like it and it's nice. And it's kind of, like you say, Mike, anchors us back to a happy place. So interesting. I wanted to just get that across, the fact that the current consumer sentiment is very much about positivity. It's very much about anchoring to where we want to be. There's also been another trend, and there was a McKinsey report done recently, which was about the fact that we as consumers and we as a business B2B audience, we've catapulted ourselves 5 years forwards in the first month of lockdown. And what we're going to do, by the way, is there's some reports that we're taking this from. We're going to put this in the chat, so anybody that wants to take it, they can do it. But one of the things that I wanted to ask the panel here, Philip and Mike, was largely centered around the winners and losers and what we know about the winners and losers and what is it that makes them winners and losers. So let's break this down for a little bit. Mike, from a perspective of the portfolio or any experience of businesses outside, what are the things that the government have been doing, and what is it the things that the businesses have been doing to make themselves winners?
I think unlike, I guess, the last credit crunch recession where we were all experiencing a similar thing at exactly the same time, I think what's been obvious about this is that it's affected people very, very differently. So you've got businesses right at the very start. So, we've had restaurant chains, coffee shops in our portfolio who right from the start of March, when we went into lockdown, were shutting straight away overnight, mothballing sites, putting, all of the staff pretty much on job retention scheme. And actually, that hospitality sector dealt with things very, very well and very, very quickly. And what we're seeing now is, they opened up again with Deliveroo and things, and now they've opened up sites again. And okay, things are actually, probably not back to 100%, but actually there's masses of resilience in that sector. And they've had to do things like renegotiate rents and things. But actually, I think if you take that, which is probably if you would say restaurants and holidays must be the two of the hardest hit sectors, and you say actually with the sort of huge amount of government support that there's been, and everyone used that word unprecedented for a long time, you've got a lot of businesses showing resilience. And they will come out of this. In fact, what we're seeing with some of those businesses is actually better businesses at the other side of it. So there's a restaurant chain in London that I was sitting on the board of, but unfortunately had to pass it over to a member of the team, obviously, because I couldn't be traveling down to London every week. But they've had a 6% increase in their margins during lockdown. And that is simply because they've been able to totally focus internally for those 3 or 4 months. So they have a central kitchen that is now operating much, much better than it was before. As a management team, they've been able to sit down and go through their processes right from the very start of suppliers right through to how they serve that meal to a customer, and map it all out properly, which before they would have been too busy to do. So I think, when I look across the portfolio, even those businesses that you would have been sat there 7-8 months ago saying, this is going to be really, really tough, have we got a business at the end of it? They've been able to find some really strong positives through.
I agree with that, Mike, and I think that sentiment is sort of being echoed across a lot of the different businesses that we talk to, and that is the fact we've focused internally, we focused on efficiency. Customers have fallen away, but we focused on improvements. There are, as you rightly said, there are opportunities as well. And one of the interesting observations that we've had from a marketing perspective is that some research was done. I can't remember who. I think it was Marketing Week. And I've got the link for it somewhere, but I can dig it out and put it in the chat. And Marketing Week said that the interesting thing about COVID was that the dwell time on ads is 60% more than the non-COVID related ad placements. So we got COVID content on a news page. The dwell time on the ads is much higher on COVID content than it is on, and so now I'm not saying that that's the same as what you're saying, but what I am saying is that there is gold if you can look for it, and you have to look for it. And that focusing internally has been a big thing, especially for what we've done. And what about you, Philip? What do you think? How have you found that your clients and you guys have been transitioning and focusing on the opportunities?
Well, I thought way back in March that a lot of our businesses retain, that all the retainers had unravelled by about September, and September would be a month of crunch. In fact, quite the opposite's happened. The market has changed and COVID has forced the pace. I agree fully with Mike with that change has happened much faster. But we have clients, for example, in distribution. Distribution was already busy anyway with Brexit and people stacking things up. But as a result of COVID, more warehouses are full of goods. Logistics, we deal with some logistic companies. They're really, really busy. And you're seeing jobs created by Hermes, DPD, Kingfisher Group, funny enough, and various other Morrison's Home Delivery, etc., etc. So jobs are being created, but we found with clients, the focus has changed. So the clients are actually wanting more integrated marketing, which is good. It plays well for my agency. But secondly, allied to that, they actually there's a move towards webinars. So all the exhibitions are canned, and people have spare budgets. And the other thing that we forget is that the government, with its furloughing scheme and its investment into back into the spending of the country, they're spending another 210 billion. And every business, or most SME businesses in the UK, has been actually given a little windfall of typically between 10,000 and maybe 25,000 pounds. A lot of those businesses sitting on that money, and when things get better, that money will get spent. So there's some interesting pent up.
Yeah, that's it. I was going to ask you about this pent up demand. So again, guys, on the webinar, the reason we're talking about this is, remember, marketing focus. The reason we're talking about this is I want to prefix what we're going to say about sort of direction of travel from marketing, tech, and spend, etc., with the fact that essentially consumer sentiment is high, which means that B2B demand grows, which then come on to the fact that pent up demand in the economy. Now, pent up demand, Philip, you've got views on this, and I want to sort of pull this out, and that is the fact that largely the boom that some people have been experiencing now is as a result of the government stimulus. It's as a result of the leakage from the travel sector and the hospitality sectors where we've not been able to spend money. So Philip, what I'm saying, what I think I'm saying that you can hopefully corroborate is the fact that the money that would have been spent during this period, except for the government stimulus, except for me taking your holiday money, hasn't yet been spent. Is that what we're saying?
I think it's mixed. Some of it has been spent. A lot of people saving money at the moment simply because they haven't been on holidays. Now, if you ask anybody, if I said to you, Adam, do you want to go on holiday next year? Mike, do you want to go on holiday? And other people on this webinar.
Yes. Boys' trip, Philip.
Pardon?
Are you thinking a boys' trip?
Who knows? Adam, I don't think you would get permission for that. But anyway, the whole point being is there's pent up demand, people wanting to go on holiday. Those holidays haven't gone away, it's just people don't feel comfortable doing it. So there's an interesting stat that's from YouGov. They did a survey about 3,500 people, and they asked them a number of key questions. So first of all, they asked them, did they agree with the lockdown? And 40% of the people surveyed actually wanted a stronger lockdown, which I thought was interesting. They did a survey of youngsters aged between 18 and 24. 2/3 of them actually agreed with the pubs closing at 10 o'clock. If you listen to the media, you'd think everybody wants the pubs open in that age group well after 11 o'clock. So you've got huge changes going on, but allied to that and that pent-up demand that you're touching on, there's a number of things. So people are spending that money instead of going on holiday. I, for example, would deal with a retail park, and they have on there somebody selling hot tubs, and they've sold out of hot tubs because instead of going on holiday, you have a hot tub. So what's happened is the money's being placed elsewhere. DIY, Kingfisher Group, B&Q, doing really, really well at the moment because everybody's spending money at home and improving. Estate agents have done well because there's been a holiday in terms of tax, but in inverted commas, it's also because people realise that the homes are really more important than they used to be when they commuted to work. So they actually want nicer homes and nicer environments to work from. So we're seeing a whole redistribution of wealth, and we've got a whole ton of people just sitting on money. And that's going to be interesting for Mike next year. and Force 24, my business, because we will get into a state where the government stimulates the economy by having negative interest rates. And when that happens, people start losing money on money in the building society in the bank. What happens to it?
Go and spend it, Philip.
We aren't sat here, are we? Where like the previous recession, where everyone was saying, well, consumer sentiment's gone through the floor and not spending. Actually, up until this point, I know I'm talking generally because there are people out there who have, lost jobs and things, but generally, people have got money in their pocket and want to spend it and are finding ways to do it. So even now, you've got people booking holidays abroad and holiday cottages and things, even when we're going into, potentially in West Yorkshire into tier 3, and people want to still find a way to do things.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I mentioned a moment ago about my partner from Stockwell Park, and they have an amusement sort of attraction, if you like, a UK attraction, and their pre-ticket sales launches are on the premise that, look, if we can do it, we'll do it. If we can't do it, we won't do it. So people booking Santa's Grotto and all this kind of stuff, they've sold out everything 10x against prior years. So as you say, the point is, in previous the previous recessions, the consumer sentiment has generally been low, whereas right now consumer sentiment is buoyant as heck. And that could be just something that we as consumers have changed. It could be something that's fundamentally different about why this recession's been created. But the reality of it is that I'm here and I'm being confined, and I want to get out and I play. I want to play. I want to go to the kids, play with the kids. I want to go to the amusement parks. I want to go do all these wonderful things that I just can't do right now. So it's being pent up. And I said right at the very beginning of lockdown, I said, look, as marketeers, especially in this environment, my decisions are being made now. Those marketeers that sort of pulled back said, we can't transact right now, so we're going to sit back. The amusement park's closed down, or, nobody can eat in a restaurant right now, or whatever it might be. The reality of it is, when I'm in this position and I'm confined, this is when I'm dreaming. This is when I'm thinking about what I'm going to do. And I'm spending more and more and more time looking at where we're going to go on holiday next year, how we're going to treat the kids, and I've even started to think that, well, maybe we should book a trip to Lapland for Christmas. I would not think that, because it costs massive, but some of these things I'm starting to think more lavishly in my direction of my thoughts about what we can do as we go further and further and further without having had a holiday, without having had lots of fun. So here's the thing. So again, I wanted to say that was the prefix to why we're here. That is a really important thing to get across to everybody before we move into what are we doing as businesses. So the thing that I would like to move on to now is, what are we doing as businesses to adapt to this way? So we know we've got no crystal ball, so we don't know when it's going to be all clear. But I mean, I think, Philip, you were saying that the common feeling within the government is that at some point, March, April, there'll be either a better sentiment or a vaccine. Is that right? What are we saying?
So the government's ordered vaccines from 6 different suppliers, and it will have somewhere in the region of 360 million vaccine doses when they arrive. It's called Edging Your Bets. But the government wants to start actually vaccinating people, starting with the NHS in December, as soon as that. And they think they're in a strong enough position with the Oxford vaccine to do that. Now, think of that as a game changer. The whole process has really been protecting elderly people in the NHS. If you start vaccinating those vulnerable people, you can actually start to make them safe. And we no longer need to protect against granny's health. And if we start doing that, then it's a complete game changer. People start to feel more confident, and many of the messages that we've put out about the NHS and all the rest of it start to erode to some extent, because they're no longer relevant, and we can get back to an element of normality. The government's desperate to do that, and the plan, and it's a big if plan, is that we start to see normality by about March next year. When that happens, it will be a complete game changer. People will start booking holidays, the hospitality industry will take off, people will feel confident, people will start spending, and this country will see a massive element of growth. And it's all part of this pent-up demand. The demand's never gone away. It's the fear of people doing things, either traveling or going off to spend money at retailers and things like that, that's holding them back.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, so let's have a look then at what we're doing as a business. So let's talk now about the what do we. So we understand now the fact that we've got winners and losers in the marketplace, and so we understand about the consumer segment. So what are we as marketeers going to do differently to talk to those people? And the piece of advice that I would say to you is that yes, whilst there is evidence out there to say that there are clear winners and clear winners in terms of sectors, don't go for travel companies, go for this or whatever. If you're in a business which can target lots of different businesses, or potentially you've got, let's say it's the B2B environment, you can target the winners and you can ignore the losers. And I think actually you've got to be very careful here, because this is not, we are not saying only focus on the winners, ignore the losers, because actually it's in those businesses that are in the most turmoil that the biggest opportunities can be sometimes found. Most people's messaging from a B2B perspective is largely centered around productivity or efficiency or improvements in some way, or cost saving. So very rarely in a B2B world are we saying this is premium and you will love it, and we play to the ego of somebody, because in consumers we drive big flash cars, or we have fancy garden sheds, or whatever it may be, and we can sell premium to consumers. But in a business environment, we're selling usually an efficiency message. So it's not to say only focus on those guys, it's to say just understand how you use messaging in those worlds. In a business that is a winner, the efficiency message is all about maintaining that and growing that position. Whereas if you're in you're in one of the losing categories and we're fighting for survival here, we switch that efficiency message to about cost saving messages, for example. And so it's about understanding whether we can do that. And I'm going to talk about what we did as part of that in a moment. But in terms of messaging, Mike, one of the things as a marketeer, you've got 50 portfolio businesses that you're sort of either involved with, look after, or watch from afar. But have you seen a sort of commonality in terms of the messaging used in marketing in this last few months?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing we did with all our portfolio, or I did, was when we went into this, was we all board got together, we had a strategy day, and we went, what the heck are we going to do? And the first port of call is retaining customers rather than winning customers, and and very, very quickly, we're in an insecure environment. Everyone's feeling vulnerable. It's about relationships just as much as it is about whatever product you're selling or service you're delivering. It's about those sort of one-to-one relationships you've got. So lots of account management with those people and messaging around, look, this is a long-term relationship and a partnership. And you know what, in some cases, if we have to, give you a bit of a discount during the summer to get through, or whatever it might be, that's all part of us working together and a long-term partnership. But that messaging hasn't, the best management teams we've got have been able to continue that messaging into new customers as well, because it's exactly the same thing. If you're going to, whatever you're selling, if you're going to switch a supplier at the moment, our natural reaction is all to retrench and do what we know and put up Christmas trees. If you're going to take on a new customer, you've got a new supplier for whatever, it might be Force 24, or it might be, in our case, a new investor coming in. You want to be even more reassured that's going to be a good relationship. And actually, if we're going to have an unpredictable economy for the next couple of years, that they're in it for the highs and the lows. And how's that relationship going to play out? And okay, if I do find a tough time in 6 months, how are you going to react to that? Am I getting the right level of account management? Have I got a person I know by first name I can call at the end of the phone? I think all of that messaging has been really, really important. And maybe the sales cycle over a lot of our portfolio have increased a little bit. But, that's just all part and parcel of building that trust.
I think you're right, Mike, and I think what to play to what you're saying there is really important to say. Some of the things that you've talked about there, about the importances of the importance of the partnership and knowing that there's a account manager there to look after you, etc. What I absolutely think as marketeers, and every one of you guys on this webinar right now fulfilling a marketing role, absolutely needs to make it your job to go and talk to sales, go and talk to account managers, go and talk to delivery, go and talk to engineers, go and talk to anybody in the business that's touching a customer and get a view of sentiment. And if we're not doing this, I often find that marketeers are sat in their ivory tower, putting out what they think is best. Yes, okay, products, stakeholders are telling me what to do, perhaps, but in terms of that messaging, it's that disconnect. It's what did the last 10 sales that you brought into this business, if you're in a volume business, what are those last 10 sales? What were the things that the sales guy said with a flipping point? What was it? And as marketeers, I often say on my webinars, I have to say, you are the magic, you are the energy, you are the glue. And it's really important that we recognize that it's so important that you get into those cracks. You get and find all these little bits of information, you pull it in and you sense check against what you're saying to your contact base by any means possible. So I totally agree with that, Mike. I totally agree with that sentiment. So what is it that from a point of view, and you mentioned also, Mike, that we and it's interesting to see from your point of view that we're accepting of a longer sales cycle. We just recognize what it is, we put a narrative to it, we understand it, and we can plan to that. Rather than trying to fight it and trying to get that sales cycle down. Maybe that's an objective. Yes, we've always got to try that, but we've come to a certain level of peace with this, and we reforecast on that basis. And anything to add to that?
I was going to say, I think there's a big point in here that sort of come to me this year as well around brand building is just as important, if more important than it was probably a year ago. So I guess, okay, take the restaurant example. You're not just going to anymore say, oh, walk round the corner and go for that meal. You might check on the website and see if you think it's a COVID safe environment and what precautions they've got in place. If it's a piece of software you're buying, you've got to, the potential customer has more time on their hands. They're going to look at the website and go into more detail, look at your YouTube channel and your Instagram potentially and all this sort of stuff, and check you out because, the one-to-one relationships you might have had before, which would have, you can do a lot over Zoom and get to know it, but you haven't got those natural sort of chemistry going, have you, that you would normally get to know somebody. And I think subconsciously get to know that person and build trust. So we've looked at a few investment opportunities during lockdown, really nice businesses, but we've never met the team. We've just met them on Zoom and done a few meetings and found actually, would we invest 5 million quid into a business where we've never met the team in person? That was quite a big question we asked ourselves right at the start of this. And our gut reaction was no. And actually, when I went through that process and we met those businesses and we're trying to get comfortable with it, we couldn't actually do it. There was a barrier we had to get across, and actually we could only do that in person. But another way around that is particularly in a smaller price sale, got to build that brand around it.
So what you're saying there is that's a really interesting point as well. So the marketeer's job has just got bigger. So in a world where the sales team are going face to face, they're a lot more hands-on. They're up and down the motorway. They're meeting people. They're pressing the flesh, as they call it. And where we can't do that, we're very much the marketeer's role and responsibility is to try and build some of those brand values in that the sales guy would have done and embodied in person that he's not able to do or she's not able to do now. So the marketeer's got to do this, right? The marketeer's got to make sure that the output is
another point I make to that, Adam, is and something that we've gone through as a company this year is revisit our company values. And every time I'm meeting a new business at the moment, values is coming up, and the company wants to talk about their values and where they see themselves heading, and they want to hear about YFM's values and why should we trust you, and actually that's something new to me that's happened this year. Before, it was about talking to a funder about money and what are the best terms I can get, and what do you want from me, interest rates, all that sort of stuff. Now, in first meetings, we're not talking about that. We're talking about company values.
You know what, Mike? Another thing I've been preaching for years is the fact that the marketeer, even if they aren't right now the head and the leader of the conversation, in the future, they will be. Marketing-led organizations tend to outperform non-marketing-led because they've got everything covered. Now, it's interesting that you, as a commercial guy, somebody that isn't necessarily connected directly to the marketing world, maybe has an interest in it because of portfolio businesses, but not connected to it, is saying, we're talking about brand. We're talking about brand. And that has never been the case before. Never. You know, you take this classic, the classic sales guys, they are the brand. You know, a faint whiff of whiskey and some deodorant and some Brute for men. I'm the brand. Whereas now, you know, we've sort of softened that, and that's where we're going with it. And that people in the business are starting to recognize the value of the brand. And who owns the brand? Marketing owns the brand. So, you know, I am the magic, I am the energy, I am the glue. You know, you got to start embodying this because your role can get so much bigger as a marketeer. So, big step up. Philip, is there anything you want to add to that, or specifically about what you're going to do differently in the next 6 months to attract new biz?
No, I think it's a fair comment. So it's all about trust and security. So one of the first things we've discovered is that I used to think that you actually had to go out and meet people, a little bit like Mike, and you won the confidence and sign a contract. What we're finding now is doing a lot of business over Zoom and go to meeting, things like that. We do a presentation, we demonstrate, we give a bit of a warranty. Like Mike suggested there, we sell the values of the business as well as the service. And we're finding that people will come on board on that basis. And we've won quite a lot of work. Now, the big twist for us is that actually, if we can do that in the UK, and it's actually made our productivity go up because we're not traveling all over the UK, we can actually do that abroad. So since February, we've won 3 overseas accounts, and we're confident we're going to be winning some more. And we're actually investing money now for 2021 in terms of attracting people, not just from Europe, but from America and Australia, where we're already doing work, because we think out there that they value the skill sets, and because the pound's come down a little bit in value, we're actually a cheap place to do business with. So it's a win-win.
We're like the TK Maxx of the world, the consulting world right now. We're the B&M bargains of consultancy. No, but you know,
B&M bargains have done very well. They're one of the winners.
I bet they have. I saw that in the notes. Actually, that was one of my provocation questions, wasn't it? But anyway, it doesn't matter. We've done it now. Anyway, so really, that's an interesting point. And actually, to be honest with you, it's not one that we at Force 24 have necessarily considered. But it's really pleasing to see that you have, and that is, why does all of a sudden travel time make any difference to where I do business? And again, from you marketeers out there, not all of you are worried about that, but in businesses where we're very much centered on the UK, we support the UK marketeer because we've got more professionalism here, we've got presence on the ground, we've got no time zone difference, and that really matters to us because we give a 2-minute SLA. Whereas Philip, I suppose you're a little bit more, well, you know, firstly, I can have a call later on at night, that's absolutely fine, but also it's not that timeliness that's needed in our industry. You know, if people have got a problem, they've not had an answer within a couple of minutes, it's a problem in our game. But in yours, you know, you can do that, can't you? And that's really nice that you're seeing go wider. I hope it goes well.
Yeah, I think that's right. But I mean, the benefit for you as well is, for example, in Australia, one of the clients we brought in, that's actually now a Force 24 client as well. And they've cancelled HubSpot. It's a genuine story. I'm not making this up to anybody listening in. They've cancelled with HubSpot and gone to Force 24. I think it's easier to work with and it's a lot more cost effective for them. So there is it pace to market, and that client's very pleased with my service. It's pleased with the service you're providing. But if we can do that between us, just think of the market out there and the potential of bringing in new work.
I totally agree. Listen, now what I want to talk about for a moment, guys, to the marketeers here, Philip and Mike, please chip in if there's anything you want to add. But it's actually around this brand building versus activation. So this is around what Force 24's done and how we pivoted during this, which I have told people about this in the past on previous webinars, but I think it's important to reiterate because it's now been framed with what the two professionals have now told us. So Force 24, sort of one of our principal channels for lead generation is direct. So direct marketing through email or sometimes through SMS if that's pulling people back into webinars and things like that. But anyway, mostly email. We do a lot of retargeting, we do a lot of display, we do SEO, we do everything. But one of our principal strategies is that we use our non-direct channels to fill the funnel with data capture. So we're all about trying to get somebody to engage with us in some way. We then retain that record and we go direct. And our direct strategies then are split between brand and activation. So let me just clarify what that means for a second. So one of the things that we do is, so we now have, I think it's just over 100,000 people that have either attended our webinars, met us at shows, whatever the various different guises of getting in touch with us may have been. And we have 100,000 people that we're talking to on a regular basis. And what we've done is we've said, look, everybody sits in this brand category, this top of the funnel brand category. And that is where we tell people about wonderful things, not about necessarily us, but that embodies our brand. So I'm not saying I've got to say our values are this, our values are that, we're great because of that, because that's activation. What I'm saying is I've got to embody my brand in my brand communications. And one of the things that our brand embodies is support and education, free training and support for life. So how does our brand messaging carry support and education? Now, one of the things is through guides. We invest a great deal of money in writing guides for marketeers just like you, and we send them out to you and you can have them free of charge. We do webinars like this where we're trying to help. We're trying to say, look, maybe there's something you didn't know about this. There's lots of things. So our brand value that we're playing to there is support and education. So those brand campaigns are for everybody across the top, everybody. And we have eliminated activation campaigns. So what's an activation campaign? An activation campaign is buy now, come and get a demo, come and download our price list, anything that's about come and get a commercial conversation going. So the top of the funnel is brand. Then we eliminated activation from there and we have put activation to what we call middle of the funnel. So what happens is we get 100 people on a webinar, a couple of hundred people. We've had nearly 1,000 people sign up for this webinar series, so we'll get a lot of follow-ups. And what happens is people come, they come and look at the website, they download some guides, they do some stuff, all brand. Once they've done that, they move down to the funnel, to the activation layer. And that's where we go and start talking to them about, hey, you know, next logical step that you could make is download our price guide. Some of you guys will have received this already. Some of you guys may have downloaded the price guide. After that, next logical step that you can do is download our brochure. Great. Next logical step, hey, why don't you book a demo? And these are all activations. They're sequenced activations. Okay. And this is where automation helps. It doesn't, automations are, yes, it's a productivity sell. Yes, it's a cost saving sell if you come into Force 24 because we're cheaper than a lot of the other products, although I hate the word cheap. But it's also about optimization. And it's the strategy that I use to talk to people to optimize how I communicate with them. I'm going to prove this to you in a moment as well with some questions, but I'm just going to move on from this for a moment. So I just want to make sure that we all understand that brand and activation sits on two tiers. Anybody that wants to get down and dirty with the technicalities of that, please reach out to us at Force 24, book a demo, and we can talk about this very specifically and show you exactly what we mean. But we hopefully understand that brand and activation are two separate channels, and that's all I need to get across for right now. So one of the things that we then learned that plays into what Mike's been saying is that two-way sync between sales, account management, and marketing is pivotal. So the other thing we did was we took what people are saying on board from sales and from marketing. We made notes about what it was that they were saying, and we created marketing arguments alongside our brand to support them in that way. And what that's meant is that we're basically just replaying what the market is telling us. This isn't rocket science. This is what we as human beings do every single day of our lives without realizing we're doing it. The only thing is we don't sometimes think that we have to do it in digital because we just can hit as many people as we want. But we do. We absolutely have to optimize digital, and we have to make sure that what we're saying is the right thing to the right person. And you might have heard me say that, you know, personalization of a communication, you know, in the old days, people used to think it'd be insert first name here. That's not personalization. That's putting somebody's name in an email. Personalization is sending the right message to the right person at the right time. And if you take any one of those three components away, it ceases not to be personalization. So I deliver the right message to the right person at the wrong time. It's the wrong message. And this is what personalization, and this is what optimization is about. So how do I do that? We listen to the market. We listen to what sales are telling us. We listen to what customer services are telling us. But more importantly than that, we listen to what our contacts are telling us. So I'm going to ask some questions in a moment, and I'm going to try and extract some answers from you guys. So this is quite an interesting thing. So I want some audience participation in here. So you sat back, you're watching the telly, you're ignoring, you're doing some work. I want you to stop for a minute, and I want to just focus on this for 30 seconds whilst we do this. And I think this is quite an important thing to do. So I'm going to ask 3 questions. Okay, I'm going to ask you guys 3 questions, and we have got, hopefully we can all find the Q&A function. So can we all look and find the Q&A section? And I want to quickly remind you of something called the rule of 6 before I answer these questions. The rule of 6. And the rule of 6 says if I want you to do something, I have to tell you to do it 6 times. Yeah. So in marketing, you know, the rule of 6 varies in different sectors, different types of audience. But if I want you to do something 6 times. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions. I've actually done that now twice. I'm going to ask you 3 yes/no questions. But before I do, I'm going to tell you 6 times and give you the opportunity to make it valuable. Last time we did this, we got loads of responses that were quite valuable. Just simple yes/no questions. What happens if I don't answer the questions? Nothing, except maybe a little bit of curiosity as to what could have happened. Probably nothing though. Anyway, and next thing is I'm going to tell you what the questions are, and you're going to fire a yes or a no straight into that Q&A. Okay, so we all found the Q&A. We know where we go. We're going to get to the questions. Okay, is everybody ready? Here is question number 1. Let's be honest. Who of you do extract key information from prospects? Sorry, key messaging to customers from prospects to send to customers. Oh my God, I've totally made a hash of this. Let's be honest. Who uses the sales team to extract that key messaging now? Quickly into the chat. Yes or no? Yes or no? Honestly as you can. How many we got? Where are we going? There we go. Yes, yes, no, 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 no. Yes, 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 yes. No, no, no. Okay, we've got more than that. Maybe I didn't ask enough times. So the general consensus would normally be, I think that looks like a no, a resounding no at the moment. Okay, so who has adapted their messaging to target a potential winner during the COVID market? Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. So most of you in some way seem to have adapted your messaging in order to be able to target, which is really, really good. But who is using brand to lead the activation strategy rather than activation to lead the activation strategy? Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. No, 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 yes, 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 no, 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 yes, yes, yes. We're preaching to the choir, guys. These guys already know this. It's fantastic news. Good. Now, the point of me asking that is actually not for me to get those answers. Yes, I do want those answers. Thank you very much. The point of me asking that is actually that's going to help me build a bit more of a profile on you guys as marketeers. And now, as a smart marketeer, I can use the information that you've provided to now re-engage with you about how you're using data. So you've given me that information. I've taken it. Thank you very much, guys. And obviously, I'm just proving a point here. We're not actually going to do anything with that data. I'm just proving a point. You've told me what's important to you. You told me I had the opportunity. You answered, and I got responses. And it's the classic, you know, I ask you to wave a fiver around in the air, I don't spend my time trying to convince the people that aren't waving fivers. I just go around and take the fivers that are there. I focus on the ones that are talking to me. And this is the point. So I now have a team of people, I don't know, 15, 20 people on there that are engaging, that I can ask more questions to. But I should absolutely use those answers responsibly. And I should absolutely talk to them about what they're talking to me. And if as a marketeer, I'm taking those answers, I'm doing nothing with it, then that's that's more annoying as a consumer than never asking me. So anybody, Mike, Philip, my little monologue there, that's my little piece that I want to, I want to get that out of the way. Is there anything that you guys have seen or want to add to that before we move into the questions?
Not really. I think it's quite interesting in terms of some of the answers.
Yeah, well, you know what, guys, well done, because that's impressive. Go on, Tim Bennett. Yes, of course you're saying yes. Good lad. Mike, is there anything you want to say?
No, that's great.
Fine. Sam, could you do me a favor, please, and furnish me with the latest set of questions, and we've got that coming up in about 3 minutes time. I think actually do have them.
It should be in your inbox.
I've already got it. Okay, so final piece. I've got a question actually for Mike and Philip, and that is, what do marketing managers need to do? What are the people on this webinar listening to this webinar afterwards? What do they need to do to skill up? In your opinion, where to skill up? Mike, do you want to go first? Have you got any thoughts on this?
Straight to me. Philip looked very, very relieved then. So I guess what I'm seeing is exactly what you said earlier about that. Everything's obviously moving online, but there's this greater connection between sales and marketing, and marketing leading on the brand, but then also getting much closer to the sales teams than they were before. I don't know, I'm not the marketing expert to tell you how to do that, but I think it's a massive challenge at the moment with people working remotely, and how you deal with that as a business is different for everybody. But actually there does, we're seeing in YFM, there does need to be that conscious effort to reconnect as a team.
Yeah,
probably over communicate, where it's probably still not communicating half as much as what we were doing before.
Yeah, true. And Philip, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think there's some issues with sales and marketing getting out of sync. So you've got salespeople who've traditionally visited, can't go out, working from home, trying to do a telesales role that perhaps other colleagues are doing. And conversely, you've got marketing people trying to generate new sales opportunities. But if the marketing people don't keep updating the skill sets, the danger is they're using the traditional techniques that maybe used a year, maybe 2 or 3 years ago to actually generate sales. And what's actually needed is a bit of a reappraisal if they haven't done that already. Bring sales and marketing together. Marketing, you touched on it earlier, marketing must engage and must look at new ideas and new ways of operating, because there is new ways of working. And I think that's got to be integrated with the sales team, so they're all in unison. And there's some evidence that's not always the case. So if you're a marketeer and you're listening to this now, work with your sales team, but also look at new opportunities for communicating, because there are lots of opportunities and these things can be pulled together, because there's no one single silver bullet that will solve everything.
I think what I would say, Phil, to that is that probably we're just saying the same thing in a few different ways. But it goes back to that restaurant example I made before and all the boring bits that they had time to do. Now is the time, I think, for sales and marketing teams to sit down and do the boring stuff that you've probably not had time to do. Really go through, how does your sales process work from when you first reach out to a customer through to making that sale, and make sure it is as slick as possible.
Yeah, I fully agree, Mike.
Totally agree. So let's have a look at some of the questions that we've got. So Joshy McGee, this is probably the most relevant. Joshy, I hope I'm saying that right. As we move into 2021, what skills are hiring managers likely to be looking for? And I think really, one of the things, I mean, obviously we can only comment in the world of marketing, but we've spoken there actually for the last 5 minutes about connectivity. It's about this inquisitive nature, about the ability to communicate with the wider departments. So a marketeer really obviously has to embody fantastic interpersonal and skills, and it's all about connecting to the wider business, and it's that empathetic nature of a marketeer that really works. And we've got to be able to connect with sales, we've got to be able to connect with account management, we've got to extract that data. But not only that, and of course I'm going to say this, marketing automation, those marketeers that are still not sort of using automation to their strength and are still doing things manually, it's going to be very hard to compete in a world where other companies are using automation, because it's not a fad, it's just better. And where marketing or hiring managers are recruiting, one of the things that we've definitely seen is the fact that they don't want somebody to skill up on their money. They want it already done. So the reality is, I think, you guys sat, in the marketing world right now, make sure that if you are using an automation platform, you're not sitting back and doing what you could have done in MailChimp. You are using the platform, you're extending to the breadth of its edges, and you are understanding where and it's your responsibility. The vendor, we actually try to take some of that responsibility off you with the free training and support for life, but it is actually down to you to learn these products. And that is a principal skill that I absolutely believe is critical. So I think that's one. Anything quickly for you guys to add before we move on to the next question? Skills wise,
one of the skills is empathy. A lot of people have gone through a difficult period of time, maybe with employment, maybe with down trading and things like that. So in terms of skill sets next year, we're recruiting for a general manager in January. We want somebody who can empathize, who can identify with clients, who can understand clients. And we also need more than ever people who understand marketing, not just a particular aspect of marketing, but all the different strands of marketing and ability to pull those together. And Adam, Force 24 is part of that. You're part of our business here too. And it's been able to pull everything together, and actually somebody who understands that. So the marketeers have got to understand all aspects and then empathize and understand and be able to work as part of a team. You pull all those things together, you've got a great team.
Agreed. Okay. I've got an interesting question here from Ben Featherstone. If lockdown was to be announced for the first time tomorrow, what would you personally have done different? Mike, have you got any views on that? What would you? Oh, actually, he goes on to say, done differently for your team's marketing strategy. Sorry.
Oh, thank God.
What would you? Let's talk about generally. What would you have done different if lockdowns tomorrow? It never happened before. Lockdown tomorrow, but you've got the benefit of knowing this now. What would you have done differently? Anything or something? Doesn't have to be marketing. Just tricky one, eh?
Hard question.
It is, isn't it?
Hard question, because we've all sort of tried to react the best we can and the quickest we can, haven't we, to what we've got? But I think generally across our portfolio, we've found that management teams have reacted really, really quickly and stepped up to the challenges in front of them. So I think that's a hard one to answer.
It is a hard one. That's why I picked it and threw it at you like a rabbit in the headlights. Okay, look, Philip, have you got anything that you might want to add? I've got a couple of thoughts on it, but is there anything that you think about what you would have done?
The only thing I would say was that I just assumed, and I'm a marketeer through and through, that actually the market was being turned off, and it wasn't. It was being realigned. So the people who were all working from home needed marketing support. And actually, once we latched onto that, we actually latched on then to the people who couldn't go to exhibitions and couldn't do other things and actually needed our skill sets. And once we did that, we've never really looked back since the lockdown.
Yeah, Phil, I agree with that. I think back to my point before, I think we would have reached out, particularly to our key customers, much earlier and realized, we needed to provide people that reassurance and around the relationship and things right from the start. And maybe, we were all a bit slow to do that because we didn't know the extent of what we were going into. So more account management.
So that's interesting. Yeah. And to be honest with you, Yeah, knowing what we know now, going into a new lockdown now, it is still a very tricky question, but the principle is that acceptance that the world isn't turned off and that all we're going to do is build things up. And we have to understand where that is, and we have to play to the emotional connections of those people that are cooped up or not able to transact. That restaurant owner that is sat there at home right now with his feet up, that can't do anything, can't sell any of his wares. What could we say? And we recognize that it's going to come back. I think a lot of it was a lot of people were, everything, turn it off, turn everything off, everything. And they're now having to pick up those pieces. And you know, I think there's been a lot of equity loss, a lot of brand equity loss. And my advice would be, what would I do differently? Keep going. Just keep on going. Find out what those strategies are that's going to make people work. Recognize that the world is an immovable, well, it's not an immovable object, it's an object that's moving. But the point is, it's an object that the tides come in and go out, the sun will rise and the sun will set. And that's going to keep happening no matter what, just like the markets are going to keep trading, people are going to keep spending money, and it's just going to, you can just hold it back for a while, you can't hold it back at infinitum. Just got one in. What are other managers doing to keep momentum going with prospects? Sales team is heavily reliant on marketing comms. Do they need virtual pitch packs, quarterly webinars? Seem run of the mill. Need more campaign, need more creative offerings. Sorry, that was a really, really badly read statement, but that's, I understand what you're saying. So what we're saying is, what are other marketing managers doing to keep people engaged? And what you're reaching for there, sorry, I don't know your name because it's Arve webinar, Arves webinar. I don't know, I'm not sure your name. So what you're trying to do there is, I think this is a symptom of not yet necessarily having truly embodied brand and activation. And brand comes in at various different times of the journeys, and it's understanding that the brand doesn't mean I tell you about my brand. The brand means I embody my brand. So, you know, I get your point. So the sales team need pitch packs, they need the quarterly webinars, etc. Yeah, fine. But it's all part of this mix. So when I'm thinking about this from a brand point of view in my top of the funnel stuff, yes, I do build webinars into that strategy. Yes, I do build content into that. And then when I think further down the funnel about how does a sales guy need supporting, it might be that there are pitch packs. It might be that there are all sorts of information that's supporting that guy. But I'm not doing things because they're faddy. I'm doing things because they needed there's a weakness in the messaging at that point that needs propping up, because somebody told me they didn't buy from us because they didn't know we did this. And my job is to try to understand, right, at these points in the sales process, I've got to make sure we're doing this. And how do I do that? Maybe it is a pitch pack, but the purpose of the pitch pack is to say these things. And really what I want to say is, look, you know, I don't like it when marketers think, oh, we needed this. And they put it in and off they go and they send it to everybody and whatever. You've got to plug the holes. Marketing plugs the holes and it fills the holes and it makes stuff better. It doesn't set the charge. But because we've seen them doing something over there, we think, oh, we should do that. Well, we might not have a hole there. So we've just got to make sure we're plugging holes and we're using the ideas that other people have got to plug those holes. So my view is, yes, I mean, you've said all the headline offerings, and the fact that you guys are here on the webinar is great. And I don't think you need to look at it in the way that you're looking at it. I think personally you need to sort of look at where the holes are before you decide what it is that you need to fill it with.
Yeah.
Mike, Philip, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think the main thing is just connecting everything together. So if you were promoting this webinar, ideally, which you did, you'd have it on LinkedIn, you'd have it on your comms, on your website, you may well tweet it out, you may well actually email people directly out, inviting them, pulling the whole thing together and making it sing and dance. And I think there's still some companies still needing to get to grips with all of that. But as you rightly say, we need to understand the brand, we need to understand the messages, and we need to stitch them all together.
Agreed. Next question, David Batchelor. We'll do another one after this one. David Batchelor, what will replace face-to-face exhibition events? And again, really, that's for me in the same sort of vein. as the previous question, which is saying, like somehow you're going to just now say, oh, we don't do that now, we do that. Well, that's not how it works. You say, we don't do that now, therefore we've relieved this budget, and that budget is now going to be split across many different things. Obviously, the answer that I think you're leading into there is webinars and the digital events. And our experience so far of the digital events is that they're very hard to commercialize. They're very, very difficult to take a webinar attendee to a transaction. But it's not saying that you shouldn't do it, because of course the brand and what the brand stands for is being propagated out at the same time. So we just need to recognize webinars, digital engagement is a different proposition, although we are talking to people. It's a different proposition to physical face-to-face. Physical face-to-face, you press the flesh, you get to show your product, you talk, you say there's opportunities, and we're straight into activation. We're into a sales negotiation. We'll meet 100 people on that stand, and we're all chatting, and we're all about to do business. Whereas that's just not the case with webinars. I'm here out of intrigue. My digital footprint is so much more flimsy and less rigid than my physical footprint. And when I've physically gone to the stand and I've physically sat and spoken to you for half an hour, there's a lot more retention there than what we're getting here. So I don't think it's fair to say, oh, face-to-face will be replaced with webinars. Maybe, who knows? But what will happen is that budget will get carved back up. And I absolutely actually think that we'll be back in face-to-face next year. Don't think that's going to go away. So I don't think anything's going to replace it. I think face-to-face is going to stay. I just think we've got a short-term bubble where we're trying to find other ways in which we're going to do things. And I think it's a really positive thing. We've learned how to do webinars. Other people have learned how to do webinars at ICE, and content's getting better, etc. So I don't think there is an answer to that question. I think it is what it is. Anybody got anything to add to that? Philip or Mike?
No, I agree with you. I think it's just part of the mix, isn't it? And it's all that brand awareness, and it's part of the education.
We do have clients who have had to cancel shows, can't attend, and they're actually doing webinars, but actually spending money on traditional marketing, such as advertising in digital trade publications, to drive traffic to the webinars. Yeah,
there you go. That's it. How you wouldn't have done that before, would you?
No.
Okay, final question. Aaron, surname HS. Don't know his last name. Aaron HS. Do you think marketing automation makes teams more efficient? Oh, I love this question already. Brilliant. Do you think marketing automation makes teams more efficient and therefore could help save on budget as marketing spend continues to be squeezed? Hell yeah. That's it. It's like somebody told me years ago, if my brain was put inside my laptop and I was asked to open Microsoft Office, right? And I was to work, my brain was to work 24/7, not doing anything else other than just trying to open Microsoft Office. It would take 88 years for my brain. So, Philip, Mike, maybe it'd take a little bit longer for you guys, but the point is 88 years. Right? Whereas if I press that button and it's not open in 3 seconds, I'm starting to lose it. So what I'm saying here is that the computers are able to do certain things that we just can't. And that's what microprocessing is all about. It says you've got many different streams of customers. You've got many different vertical sectors of businesses, people in different businesses with different job titles, people in different stages of the sales process. And you've got to communicate with all of them. How do you do that manually? This goes back to Microsoft Word. That is me pressing that and taking 88 years for me to open it. You just can't. So what automation does is it says, okay, let's start with the key strategies. Let's start with that and let's build it up. So people think that from day one, automation's bang, everything's fixed. No, it isn't. From day one, you just start to embody some of the principles with the training and support that you're given. You start to get a little bit faster, a little bit quicker, and a little bit better. But in the early days, we are very much about efficiency. So where my aim across the business to save every customer 8 hours minimum a week. That's what I want to achieve for every single one. 8 hours a week of your day, of your week given back. 1 day for free. given back. Why would you not take that? So, in answer to Aaron's question, do I think it helps teams be more efficient? Of course it does. But I also think it helps you be more personal and get a better response. So on a tighter and tighter and tighter budget, the proposition that we offer is designed to be cost effective. And it's actually designed to give you a day back. And so why would you not do that? And why would you not want it? So obviously we want people to come and have a chat to us about it. But, guys, do you have anything to add to that one? That's such a loaded question, but anything from...
You go first.
I honestly didn't. That literally is on there. God's honest. Aaron HS has put that in there, and it was not me with a plant. So promise. I'm not saying it wasn't Sam with a plant, but no, just kidding. I don't know where it's come from. Sorry. Anything to add?
I think you're used to answering that one, Adam.
I think that was my view. I couldn't think of anything to contribute that you hadn't already covered.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, this guy stole thunder there. So look, that's about all for today. So thank you very much for everybody that stuck through it. We'll get a lot of questions in the follow-up, and anybody that does watch this later that needs to follow up or would like to ask anybody a question, Sam is going to put on the website links where we can get in touch with Philip and links where we can get in touch with Mike. We've got obviously we're going to be talking to everybody about obviously downloading this video and watching it later as well. Sam, is there anything that I've missed in terms of the follow-ups that I'm supposed to do?
Just Philip's book. If we can get a link to Philip's book for people to register interest or something, that'd be good.
Yep, absolutely. So in the chat, you'll see there's a number of different links on there to our website, to the Allott Associates website. Anybody that wants to have a demo, obviously they're free. They take about 45 minutes to speak to a product expert, and we can show you exactly how we're going to save you 8 hours, exactly how you can have a better time, and exactly how much it would cost you or save you against your current process in terms of physical cost. So please, force24.com. I don't think I'm pointing at something, it's not there. But force24.com, please have a look and register for a demo. Philip, allottandassociates.co.uk. Go and have a look at what Philip's do. And if anybody wants any money, go and see Mike. yfmep.com. Go and understand what Mike does. Thanks, guys. Lovely to chat, and we'll see you all again soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.